right then. I think I've gotten that working. Of course, sharing the link. I have to figure out, but it's going to take me a while. One thing at a time. And if there was an echo there, it's because I inadvertently opened that in a new window. Hi, Mom. I'm going to share links into Facebook and MeWe, and then I will get started on actual stuff. But it's dark and rainy here tonight. And my fan on my computer is going crazy. I don't know if you can hear that or not. It is probably objecting to the fact that I still have the Fractal program open, even though I'm not actually running a render at the moment. It tends to be and there we go. All right. So, hey, Nolan. Well, it was warm relatively here. I think we got up to a high of 50, but we were supposed to have ice overnight, and it fortunately did not do that, at least, although not that any one of us was worried about going out in it. We had all planned on staying. It was initially saying up to an inch of ice, and then they dropped that down to a tenth of an inch, and then it was going to be a hundredth of an inch. And Sanford says there was ice on the back deck, but there was no real ice accumulation on branches, and that's what I was looking for. So there we go. Johan set up the streaming thing, and I am not sure how to use it, so I'm just going straight off the webcam, and without whatever spiffy things that the streaming can do for me. He has been talking to Pippa. The two of them have been talking about streaming and doing this kind of thing. Hey! Jason, it's good to see you. So the stunt with the cookie, by the way, Jason, was epic. And it should definitely prove to Melanie that you should have children, because parents should be able to embarrass their kids. We actually made a contest of it. Shortly after the kids all came to live with Sanford and I, we discovered that any kind of physical contact or hint of physical contact between us grossed them out. So we made a bet one day that we could gross them out with a fist bump. So we fist bumped meaningfully in the kitchen in front of them. And they were like, ew. There are perks to having teenagers. So I have a couple of topics that I had. Well, yeah, that's the fun of it, though. I mean, it's part of the reason I like you, Cordova. I had picked out a couple of topics. I'm going to hold off on one of them for a little bit because Grandma asked me to talk about something. So for those of you that mostly know us online, you will see Levon Cam now on my Facebook or MeWe. Actually, I don't think she's on MeWe right now. She was having access issues. But anyhow, she'll comment on my blog as Mountains West, and that's my grandmother. And she is kind of my hero. Growing up, I kind of always wanted to be Grandma Levon, because from the time I was 6, she started to teach me things like foraging for wild foods. We went tide pooling together. Speaking of embarrassing, when I was little, she could always embarrass me because she won an award for her photography because she's an excellent photographer. But she won this award with a nude photo of me. I was one. I was sitting in a tide pool. You can't actually see anything. But as a teenager, this was mortifying. And so Grandma Levon has been kind of my role model for a very long time. Um, it's the photography is part of it. I mean, Dad started me with photography when he put a camera in my hand when I was around 6. But Grandma has been taking wonderful pictures for I don't know how long now. But she was the family photographer on that side of the family. Dad was the family photographer for my immediate family, and then I was the family photographer and have branched out to other things. Digital is amazing because I can shoot all I want and not have to worry about paying for developing print. Grandma used to have a dark room that was actually she set that up in her bathroom, and I can remember sitting on top of her washing machine while she developed photos, but I never learned how to do it myself. I was too little then. And now, I mean, technically, I have the chemistry experience to be able to do it, but I don't have the space. And Sanford has threatened me with dire things if I take on any more new hobbies and projects. So I will stick to the digital photography, and that can get interesting sometimes because I can use different editing programs to create looks for the photography that make it look sometimes like old film. And I have one program that lets me do wet plate, which is certainly never something I would have done if I were doing it the traditional way. Wow, there's a lot of people here today. Hello, everyone. Dennis and Fiona and Becky, thank you for coming. I'm probably going to be a little bit rambly. This is the second time I've done this. And as I was saying, when we started talking about my grandmother, I'm kind of waiting for her because she asked me to talk about something. But I suppose I could probably talk about the other thing because it sort of relates to this and marketing. So some of you will know this and other ones might not. I have been running a business and indeed was a professional performer for close to 20 years. I got roped into it by my ex, and he was a magician and a balloon twister. I became a balloon twister. I ran the office for him, and I also became a face and body artist. But the primary thing for all of that was that I needed to be able to sell and market our services and what we could do to the general public, but also to schools, to libraries. So I've done business to business sales, just direct to consumer sales. I've done a lot of customer service over the years, but I also have experience in setting up marketing because when we started out, we had no budget, none. If we wanted to do anything, I had to learn how to do it, which meant that I spent a lot of time learning very, very quickly so that we couldn't starve. Uh, yes, I don't know how this works, Ben, um, with the sub page on YouTube. And I will look into that. But to return to what I was talking about with the marketing, just kind of setting up my what I do and what I have done. I learned how to do newsletters back in the day when MailChimp was pretty much the only thing in town unless you were willing to pay someone to set up and run a newsletter for you. And back in the day, we actually paid, I believe it was about $1,200 a year for someone to do a newsletter for us, and at the time it was worth it, but that was after I had already learned how to set up newsletters on my own. You will note that I do not do a newsletter as an author. It is one of the very much in things as an author right now. I have chosen not to, in part because I have done it in the past and it's a pain in the butt. But what I have been doing for the last several years as an author has been using my blog in lieu of newsletter, because you can click on the blog and get an email anytime I send out a post, which in theory is the same as a newsletter. Exactly, Jason. If I can stay on board with updating the blog, and I have promised people that the live streams that I'm doing like this will not be a substitute for updating my blog. The honest truth is that this is easier for me to sit down at the laptop and talk and respond to comments, and it's lovely to see everybody because that means I have more to talk about than it is for me to sit down and write a blog post. I'm going to try and do both. I don't have time for a newsletter on top of what I already do for the blog. But this is actually related to the comment that I made on Facebook. So those of you that are on my MeWe won't have seen this because I haven't had this issue on MeWe yet. I can see it coming. There are different schools of marketing out there, and they will teach different techniques and tactics to people that aren't very experienced in sales and marketing. And let's face it, most of us authors are not experienced in sales and marketing. Years ago, and I can't remember exactly when, but it probably was around the time he published it, I read several books by Seth Godin, who has a podcast, which is good. It has a political slant, but go into it knowing that it still has good material. Seth Godin's books, on the other hand, are excellent, and I highly recommend them to anyone that is going to be trying to sell or market anything, and that includes books. The one that really got me is his book called Permission Marketing. And what that gave me the thought of was that it's a trust relationship between you and the person that you're trying to create a relationship. They need your services and you need the work. That consent trust relationship became very important to me. The initial sales training I had came from somebody who did not value that. And I see that a lot in different schools of sales and marketing, and I don't like it. And it probably works for some people. I don't think it's going to work well on a long-term basis for authors. So the specific bad behavior that I'm seeing and calling out right now is the practice of sending a friend request to someone on Facebook, and as soon as they accept the friend request, sending them an invite to like their page for I've seen it both from artists and authors, and recently from a couple of people who are both artist and author. There are some of us out there, which is kind of cool. Unfortunately, I'd like to meet them under different circumstances than this buy my stuff. You don't know me from Adam. I prefer, and yeah, Jason, I know you get it a lot. I've seen you talk about it as well. And I know from talking to other people on Facebook, Keith Glass brought it up today, and I've seen it from others as well, that it's considered bad behavior. And what's probably most important about marketing as an author is building your brand. Creating an interesting thing that makes people want to learn more, i.e. buy your books. Because of Amazon and because we can publish so easily, it means that we are buried in a flood of information constantly, and a flood of books, and there's Amazon ads, which I do need to learn how to use because they are a valuable tool. Um, but using social media as a marketing platform is perilous because you don't want to tick people off. I have done so over the years. Um, and I try not to. I try to always maintain a professional public persona because I don't want to drive away potential clients and my market base. It's not just that I have friends and family on social media, I also interact with fans there. And it's important to me to not make them feel like I'm selling to them, while at the same time marketing because I'm trying to sell. Jason, I try. I have not always succeeded. It's the red hair. um, there's been times I have lost my temper and not always justifiably so. It's as well. Um, yes. No, I've lost my temper a couple of times in positions where I haven't. And there's been a couple of positions I've gotten myself into and I haven't lost my temper and I maybe should have. Uh, but that's a whole different conversation. So this isn't necessarily a lecture on how to market, but more of a cautionary, don't do that. It doesn't make people feel good about you. I have started doing something with the blog, going back to that as an avenue of marketing that I had been doing for years, and that is marketing other authors. And I can't say I get nothing out of this because I do have an Amazon Associates, so I get a little teeny tiny kickback when somebody clicks through my blog and buys a book. I do not make enough from that to even pay for hosting the blog. It helps, but it's not. It's not the main motivation for me to market other people. It's because it's not a zero-sum game. There is no single pie. I know how to make pie crusts, and I can make pie fillings from things you wouldn't believe. So, marketing my friends, marketing people I know, marketing books that are good, that makes me happy, and I want to be able to do that. So, I do that for a lot of people. I mean, I think most of you that are listening in on this are familiar with the Eat This, Will You Read That series that I had done. I keep trying to revive it, and right now I'm in a season of life where I can't because I can't cook. I don't have time. Sanford's doing most of the cooking, and Johan, my son, is actually an okay cook, and we're working on it. So I can't do that, but what I can do is what I've been doing, which is probably every other weekend on days where I'm blogging over at the Mad Genius Club and I don't have the oomph to blog on my own blog. I take and put together a book promo post, and I basically just grab whoever has a fresh new book out there. I will grab those books and their blurbs and links to them and throw them up on my blog because sure, why not? Sarah's blog does have a weekend promo post. I don't know. I've had trouble getting through to that recently. I tried to email my last 2 books in for that promo post and the email bounced. So I should probably talk to Sarah about that and make sure that I'm not doing something wrong. There are a bunch of places online where you can sign up to get emails when books are on sale or free. And when I'm doing a big push, a marketing push, and I've got books on sale, I will actually pay for slots in emails like that. But it's very hit or miss. They usually market to genres. And that might be it, Becky. I've got to go back and look. I hadn't been too worried about it. I've been focused on other things, which is another topic I'll get to in a couple of minutes. But as far as marketing goes, building a relationship, word of mouth, recommendations to people from people they trust, that's your best bet. The thing that I was told when I first started doing this is that if you can build up 1,000 fans that will buy anything that you put out as soon as you put it out, then you'll do well. That's fluid. That was 10 years ago. Things have changed. No, Nolan, my Eastwich sales are not picking up. I have not been doing a lot of promo, and this is probably a good time to segue to that, which is I have been having some ongoing health issues. I had what was probably COVID in March. And since then, I have developed what is probably full-blown asthma. And you will note that I'm using a lot of weasel words here because I cannot get a diagnosis. I cannot get treatment. I can't even get seen by a doctor. I have been in to see a chest doctor and he refused to test me. I managed to get an inhaler out of that. So I have an inhaler. So when it really, really hurts to breathe, I at least have albuterol. But that's probably the extent of what I'll be able to deal with for a considerable amount of time. Talking to a friend of mine who's dealt with some similar health issues, I am right now doing my best to shed anything that's causing me stress. And that's going to hopefully make it possible for me to get through until trying not to be bitter right now and angry. But until I can actually get seen by a doctor who is interested in helping me, then there's not much I can do about this. So I'm going to be trying to do some things to reduce my stress load so that I can stay healthy long enough to get to that point. I don't have any issues with sleep, Mom. It's more a matter of trying to drop the stress level down and the fact that I have to wear a mask every day. And that is really, really difficult with my breathing right now. Yeah, meditation is probably one of them. Light exercise. I'm having trouble with too much exercise, so I'm going to have to find the happy balance for exercise without kicking off the lungs. We're also discussing the fact that I've got to start getting proper kinds of light and amount of light since getting outside into the sunshine. Well, it's Ohio. It's gray out there. It's gray a lot. I'm going to be trying to just kind of low and slow and cruise into spring, and we'll see what happens from there. Yeah, I will be adding a stressor. Not going to discuss that too much in public, but yeah, that will be an added stressor, but it's a necessary one. So I'm not promoting the book heavily right now. I did have a conversation with my sister. We were talking about all the different states where the cute moose has now made an appearance. And I have been hearing so many wonderful stories about people who have gotten the cute moose and read it aloud. And my sister was telling me that a friend of hers has a copy of it and that his daughter loves it because it's a tongue twister for him when he's trying to read it out loud, which was not my intent, but I still find it funny. That book was, I didn't think I could do a children's book. And I kind of set myself up with a deadline because I'm an adrenaline junkie, as some of you may have already figured out. I got involved with search and rescue when I was 11, and it may be genetic because Dad was in emergency medicine for 30 years. I don't know, but There it is. So I'm a bit of a deadline junkie, so by giving myself that artificial deadline, because it was, I could have broken it and Juniper wouldn't have minded. Mama knew and understood. In fact, mom encouraged me to not push too hard. But by setting myself up and saying, "Okay, by this time, I have to have this done with the book, and then this done with the book, and then this done with the book," it kept me on track and very focused. And the result was very, very rewarding. My only regret is that I can't get down there to have seen Juniper open it herself. But again, with the travel and 2020 is over now, it does not magically change things. I do some promo, Ben, and I don't mind promo from people. As a matter of fact, the thread on Facebook where I was having a conversation about this, I actually wound up connecting with friends that I was already friends with, and I hadn't liked their pages or bought their books, including a young man, and I'm going to butcher his name, so hopefully he's not watching. Sorry, Yuri. Yuri Kurlikik, and I'll put a link to his stuff out soon, probably this weekend on my blog. But he has a collection of Israeli folk tales, and I was like, I don't have a lot of those, and I'm going to pounce on that. And he has another book it's on sale right now, Noblesse Oblige. But yeah, it would have been nice to just have that 2020, boom, we're done. We're going to go on with our lives and be normal again. But sadly, it took us a while to get here, and it's going to take us a while to get out of here again. I don't mean to worry anyone. I'm okay. I just am realizing that I'm hitting my limits harder than I would have liked, and worrying my husband in the process. And I don't like to do that either. And when I'm worrying my son as well, he's 15, and a 15-year-old boy is noticing something's wrong and I need to fix it. We are doing okay. I would like to sell more books and art, but that's more to meet certain goals. It's not that I have to worry about that to cover bills and stay fed and alive and everything. That's because the 15-year-old homeschool kid would like to go to college, and has already been accepted to the local community college, and he's taken his placement tests, and he tests about average for where he's supposed to be in high school, which, given that the past year has been a hot mess for education, I'm very happy with that. I will take it. So on Monday, he's supposed to go for an advising appointment and sign up for 2 classes, probably English and math. And because Ohio is not terribly expensive, that's going to cost us about $1,000. So this is why I've been trying to sell art, sell books, because kid needs school, and I can't do math with him while I'm at work. And Little Monster's sleep schedule is so messed up. I haven't been seeing a lot of him when I haven't been at work. That's part of the reason this holiday thing has been so nice. Yep. His plan is, he got super excited when he found out that he could do this, and it kind of lit the rocket under his butt as far as going to school and taking it serious, was when he figured out that he could get his high school diploma, his homeschool diploma, and his associate's degree at the same time in computer science. That lit his fire, and I am going to keep that running the best I can, because I want him to want to learn. With all of my kids, that's really all I've ever wanted with them, is to want to learn. That's all I can try and give them, is realize that learning is, because it's not about the education, it's about learning things that you can use. I went back to school oof, how old was I? I don't even remember. Well, I can work backwards. I was 40 years old when I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Forensic Science and Investigation with a concentration in environmental chemistry and a minor in molecular biology. Oh, it's a mouthful. I say it long form like that very rarely, but it was because I wanted to have the credentials to be able to work and support my kids, and that's where I'm at now. It's been 4 years since I graduated, and I am able to take care of the household, which was my goal. I made it. I did this. Now I have new goals, but it's what I want for my kids is to pick up from that it's worth going through the extra effort. Not that they need to go to college because I don't think that everyone needs to or should. But when I tried to go back into the workplace after my divorce, even though I had been running a successful small business for some time, I actually discovered that that was a handicap. I applied for a job making okay money at a library. I had worked at that library as a performer. I knew the people there at the library. I had worked with them. I'd booked shows with them. We'd worked for them for, I don't know, 7, 8 years probably. So I sat down in the interview with them, and um, the interview went all right. I thought the interview was going very nicely until at the end of the interview, they told me that they were not going to give me the position. They had basically interviewed me because they were curious about me, um, and that they would not give me the position because that they were afraid, as someone who had been running a business for so long, that I would not be able to take orders. And that was kind of my crucible moment of I've got to go back to college and get a degree, because the job that I did wind up with, the guy that hired me, bless his heart, he was a wonderful boss. He went to bat for me because they were hiring only people with degrees for a $10 an hour customer service rep job. And he went to bat for me, warned me that I could probably not expect a raise ever. And by the time I left there a year later, I'd had 2 raises, which was pretty much unheard of. And they came after me a couple months after I left because my boss had a family emergency and had to move back to Trinidad. And the major financial client that I was servicing wanted me. They wanted me back. So that gave me a big ego boost. But at that point, I was already going back to college, and I knew it. And I knew I had to, because I didn't think that I would be able to support the kids and support us without the degree. About halfway through the degree, Sanford and I actually had a serious conversation about whether or not I should finish it, or at that time, Pixie Noir had hit a whole lot bigger than I expected it to. And I mean, my big hit's not Andy Weir and The Martian kind of a level of hit, but it was selling well enough that had I been able to put out 3, 4 books a year selling at that level, I'd have been able to make at least as much as I was then, and by now, who knows? But that's the problem. You don't know. Algorithms change, marketing techniques change, the hot genre changes. I'm probably just as happy not having gone that route, because that would have been a lot of stress on the art, and I probably would not have been able to get the kids back under our roof had I done that. But I'm an autodidact, and that is not something I've been able to pass on to my children, unfortunately. So they do need the teachers and school, a little bit of college probably, at least certificates. And that's the problem is that you have to have the certificates. I mean, that's something that I've talked about is that I will probably eventually go back to school for a grad degree, whether a master's or PhD, just because in order to do what I want to do and be a scientist, I have to have that. What kind of duck? I don't know. All right, so I don't know if my grandmother's gonna show up, but she can always watch this later. Her question for me was what to do about, basically, and she didn't use these words, but your intellectual property after you pass away. So, we don't expect to lose grandma anytime soon, and I don't think grandma expects to go anywhere anytime soon. But she wanted to ask me about how to handle her estate, her work after she's gone. And there's probably some things that I can send her that will help. I can definitely recommend looking for information on this on Passive Voice. Passive Voice is a blog by a IP lawyer and a fan. I mean, I've been reading his stuff for years and it's good stuff. It's kind of an aggregate blog. I use it for all kinds of publishing news. But he does occasionally dive into the weeds as far as the legal stuff of how to handle IP. With anything, you really should prepare long in advance. I have already made preliminary plans for what would be done with Sanderly Studios, which was Stonycroft Publishing originally, and it's now Sanderly Studios. So that's my publishing imprint and art house. Had a conversation with my kids and talked to them about whether they would be interested in managing it should something happen to me. Because if you pass away and you haven't made a plan for what's going to happen with your copyright, it kind of gets stuck in limbo. And there's going to be passive income coming in, probably not much. For, I mean, conceivably forever. In theory, I think things short of some active management, that's probably not going to be the case. And I think you'd see, unless you had a very large backlist, you're not going to see income necessarily that you want to handle with that. One of my daughters is willing to manage passively, at least, if not actively, my work. So something happened to me. She has she will receive the information to have all the keys, basically passwords and whatnot, to various publishing platforms to be able to manage my work. Whether she would choose to take that down or to leave it up and deal with the income that came in with it, I would leave up to her. And we'll have that conversation again soon because her life is going to be changing as well. But those are the kinds of things that you want to plan ahead for. You don't want to have this happen and then nobody know how to log in and do anything with this, much less, I mean, where's this money coming from into your accounts? As far as grandma's work, she was asking about possibly leaving some of her copyrighted material to a museum. So my grandmother has various and assorted things that she's published over the years, one of which is my great-grandfather's memoirs, Confessions of the Poacher. And she and he wrote that together, and I did a little bit of work helping with publishing on that. I did a little bit more work helping with the publishing, and I believe my aunt did as well, with my grandmother's memoirs, Alaskan Bush Mother. But the books in particular that grandma's worried about, and that she's actually already talked to a museum about, she has several books about fire towers. And one's particularly my favorite is The Outhouses of Fire Towers. My step-grandfather, Ron, is a, not quite sure how to put that, an aficionado of fire towers. They have traveled to photographed, and in recent years, he has a drone and gets these amazing drone footages of fire towers all over the West Coast, even somewhat into the more inner West and into the Midwest. Um, I'm supposed to find a couple of fire towers here in Ohio at some point and go photograph them for him. Not because he says I have to, but because I want to. He has been doing this since I was a little girl. I used to go on hikes to explore fire towers with them, and it's an amazing thing. I mean, the stories. I've thought more than once that I really do need to write some novels set in and around fire towers and lookouts, and it's incredible. But divergent from, those are the ones that my grandmother has been asked about possibly leaving the copyright to a museum. And that's certainly something that can be done and probably should be arranged for sooner rather than later so that they understand how to manage it and have a procedure in place for when the time comes, which hopefully won't be anytime soon. But like I always tell my team at work, you prepare for the worst. Any of us could walk out the door and get hit by a bus. You don't have just one analyst trying to do something. We have a situation at work like that right now. There's a rather delicate test. One person can do it. She's on maternity leave. Yeah. And this is a situation I've come across so many times in business, and I just don't. I mean, I run a one-woman shop. I always have. And that's to be expected. If something goes wrong with me, if I'm sick, I can't work. I'm facing that right now with the books. I'm sick, low grade, but sick, and I can't do some of the things that I would normally do. So hopefully that helps, Grandma. I think that leaving a written directive is probably the best way to deal with that. Managing it separate from the other publications, unless you wanted to leave the entire management of it to the museum, might be difficult. I don't know what the plan is there. That's something I'll have to talk to you about. I know for me, I don't necessarily need to worry about that. All of my work to date is fiction. When I do write nonfiction, it's not going to be. Grandma is an amateur historian, and a very good one. So yes, that's what I've done. Is I've created what I call a legacy file, and it has everything in it: account numbers, passwords, everything. Sorry, didn't mean to cough on y'all. So I have a legacy file for my life in general, not just the publications, but everything. Because if something happens to me, then that needs to be accessible, and that is password protected with an envelope in my filing system to be able to access. The idea being that if something happens to me, if I'm seriously incapacitated or gone, then whoever is having to clean up that mess isn't having to deal with grief and trying to figure out where the heck all the papers are. I know, Nolan, I've coughed on you all. I could be contagious with something. I don't even know if you guys can hear him with this mic, but heckling from the peanut gallery. Oh, I can see him. I'm actually looking at myself and a chat window. Yep. Yeah, Johan's actually asleep right now because the child has a messed up sleep schedule. So he's not going to pop out, and even if he did, he has a horror of being on camera. So, yeah. I was talking to him at one point about interviewing him and doing like movie reviews because we've been watching a lot of movies together. And he was like, no, 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 no. So that is a good segue to what I was going to, my other topic that I was going to finish up with. I have been watching movies with the boy over this holiday season. It's his way of, I get to hang out with mama. We sit on the couch together and we watch TV and we cavil at each other about the flaws in the show. We've been doing a lot of historical stuff. Sometimes I know, sometimes I don't. We were focused on the space race for a while, so it's like I can highly recommend Hidden Figures and The Martian. The Martian is obviously fiction, but it comes across very realistic. I still maintain that Andy Weir's Martian is the best hard science fiction that's been written in the last 2 decades. There's not a lot of people out there doing really good hard science fiction. Unfortunately, I've also been told that Weir's second book is not as good. Second books are hard. Second books are very hard. No, we finished watching a movie today that I really, really liked. It's called The Professor and the Madman, and it is the story of two of the main people behind the Oxford English Dictionary, which would be a man who was also an autodidact, not a duck, Nolan, but James Morrow, and then the strange relationship that he had with a man who was schizophrenic and in Broadmoor, the insane asylum. And I had to explain that to Johan because he didn't get the thing. But I'm probably going to grit the book and read it. The movie glossed over the fact that it was 20 years of a relationship between the two men. They made it seem like it was a lot faster, but it was still, I thought it was really well done. It's a very difficult movie in some spots. It's definitely tragic, but you don't think about dictionaries being exciting. I came home with a big dictionary and a stand I bought on Facebook Marketplace, of all things. And this dates back to the mid 1950s, I think. I want to say maybe 1951. But they probably a door-to-door salesman. They used to go around and they'd sell you a dictionary and this table, a stand for the dictionary to live on. And Johan did not understand why I came home with this thing. This is just after we had made the decision to go ahead and do homeschooling this year. And I told him that having a dictionary on hand was important and started doing a random word of the day thing with him to try and get him comfortable with it. Because his go-to, like anyone his age, is going to be to hit Google and, hey Siri, how do I spell, or what does this word mean? But one of the things the movie touches on is the fact that the English language changes. And like I was telling him as we were watching the end of this movie, and they were talking about the changing language and how the project would never be complete because words enter the language and exit it all the time. But I object to the willy-nilly changing of meanings because it suits some agenda. So having an old dictionary in the house so we can look it up and say, okay, how has this word changed? Has it changed, and why? I think that's an important thing. I think A Beautiful Mind would definitely go on the list. I haven't seen it. I'd heard good things about it. Maps do change, and we had a globe, an old one, and I don't know where it has gone. We've moved so much in the last few years. We've lost some things, and I think that's one of the casualties. We have a map of the US that's supposed to go up on a wall, but I haven't been able to find enough wall space for it. Uh, so we've been watching movies together, and it's like we started to watch a movie that was recommended called First Man, which is a biopic of, Neil Armstrong. And Sanford actually met Neil Armstrong. He went to school with Neil's son. And, so I thought it would be really interesting. And unfortunately, and like Johan and I were talking about, it's not that the movie does anything wrong. It just doesn't work. It doesn't hit. It's very melancholy. It's rather slow. They don't always explain what's going on clearly enough. And yes, I realize that and movies can and leave a lot to the imagination and just use the actors to um, convey through their body language and expressions. But this movie just kept missing. And it was an interesting comparison between getting him to watch The Right Stuff, which he initially objected to because it was made in 1983, so it's old. And I'm like, dude. Nolan says he hopes you are well. He's being quiet today. He's been having issues with his back, so I'm not sure if that's still tweaking him or not. He says no. But so I got Johan finally got him to sit down and watch The Right Stuff with me, and he enjoyed it and got into it, but he had that initial bump of, "It's old, and the special effects aren't," and I'm like, "It's 1983. I don't even think they had CGI." But and then, of course, The First Man, which he did not enjoy, is 2 years old, something like that, 2 or 3 years old. Um, so it was interesting to see what movies had it and which didn't. Um, and I've got 2 more days off. I think he and I have more movies planned, but I'm not sure. I never know with him. I should be writing, but I'm not. So it is what it is. I'm enjoying getting to spend the time with him, and I'm really appreciating the fact that the 15-year-old boy still wants to hang out with mama. Sanford says all the time, yes. Um, eh, he can get a little clingy, but I get that, and I'm kind of catering to it because 2020 was rough on all of us, and I think we're all a little clingy. But no, life is good. Life is complicated at times. Yes, that is a good one, Nolan. The First Man did not have The Right Stuff. Eh, well, thank you all for being here for this chat, and I was probably a little rambly. And having listened to my last one, I said, way too much. I'm trying to break myself of that habit. It will probably take me a little time because this is performing with an audience. I get instant feedback. I learned how to read the crowd. And the kids are brutal. Kids are so honest. Adults are polite. I don't always trust adults to tell me or indicate when when I'm screwing up. Leads to a little self-confidence issue, but so doing the live stream, I don't necessarily have that instant feedback, so I'm appreciating the comments very much. And I do want some input from you all about timing. I had picked 8 PM because I did 7, and that seemed like it might have been too early, but now I'm thinking 8 might be too late. And to be honest, I can't if it's a weekday, really cannot do anything before 6 PM. If it's a weekend, I can schedule around it, but weekends are Weekends tend to be more chaotic for me than weekdays because I'm trying to get everything done in 2 days, which is why we picked Friday evenings. But please do give me some insight as far as timing goes, what works for you guys, and I will work around that. Okay. Yeah, I know. I don't wanna do it later. I'm an old lady. I go to bed early. And if I do it too late, I will need to unwind after this. One of the things about being a performer is I hype myself even for this, and it will take me some time to come down off that nice little endorphin rush, because I'm finding that this is very close to being a live performance for me. So I will have to unwind afterwards. I would not wanna do this and end at 9 and then try to be in bed. So, yep, 7:30 or 8 then, that looks like that's a consensus. Yes. Yes, absolutely. These will be available on my YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the channel and click the bell, you will receive notifications when I go live. I will attempt to post a link on Facebook and MeWe when I do these. So, and I will try, Jim Curtis, who I'm taking leaf from his book and doing this, he recommended posting a few hours ahead of time. And that, eh, Facebook suppresses so much, I never know how many people are going to see that. So, probably the best bet is to subscribe, click the bell, and I will try to do these in a timely fashion. I can ask for likes. If y'all like it, click the thumbs up. If you didn't, click the thumbs down. Honest feedback is valuable. But thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I appreciate that there's some people willing to follow me along on my whims and eclectic ride through life. And I will be doing this once a week, and I will be blogging a couple of times a week. They will probably not be on the same kinds of topics. Heck, I don't know what I'm writing about for Mad Genius tomorrow morning. I've got to figure that one out. But it's always good. This is as close as I can get to getting out and hanging out with friends right now. And it's not quite the same as hearing y'all's voice, but I'm grateful for the interaction and thanks for coming and listening and commenting. And I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And yes, I am too young for that one.